Welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to be sewing a book with Coptic binding. So I have two end sheets which are made of card, 4 signatures. These have got torn paper edges, but you could make each signature and then trim the edges if you'd like a straight edge. A bookbinding needle, any sewing needle would work as well. A paper clip and thread. With Coptic binding, if you've got white pages, it's a nice idea to have a coloured thread because the stitching shows up on the spine. So needle is threaded. I'm going to start with one of the signatures. So in through the top hole, on the inside of the end paper, pull the thread gently when the thread's long because it can quite easily knot, particularly if it's waxed thread, leaving a tail there, then hooking the needle through a paper clip, and we're using this paper clip to create a loop which we will need later, and then back through the same hole, trying if possible not to go through the thread that's already there. And this is where you do need to pull it gently because it will not. So we have the paper clip on the outside of the end paper. This is the inside, so we're going to go all the way along to the bottom hole and out. And we can tie a knot . The top. Now we've got the paper clip in situ. So we're now going to add the first signature. So we're going to go from the outside into the middle in the corresponding or adjacent hole. And pull it fairly tight. We are then going to go in the next hole from the middle to the outside. This is where you find out how good the holes you made were. So this is the end card, this is the signature. We're going to go in to the end card or end paper. And then this thread that's in the middle, we're going to go in the other side of it and out. Oh, didn't pull that tight. Let me just pull that tight. So the thread is that side of the central thread. We're going to go round it and then back out the same hole, and again pull everything tight. And then back in the signature. So along to the next hole, and we're going to do exactly the same in each of these holes. So out of the signature, in the end card. Now this time I am this side of the central thread, so we'll go around the other side and out of the same hole. And then back in the signature. So as you can see, in the middle of the signature, we're creating this continuous line of stitching. So out of the signature, into the end card, around the central thread, back through the same hole, and then back in the signature. So along to the top hole, and at this point we're just going to check that everything's tight, which it is, and then we're going to hook the needle through that loop which is on the paper clip. Nice and gently, because again it will tangle if given the opportunity. So once you're confident that you've captured that loop, you can take the paper clip off. So that is our first signature attached. So on to the second signature, and from this point on, every stitch is basically the same. So we're going to go in through the second signature, out through that next hole, pull it tight, and this time we're going to put the thread through that gap between the first signature and the end card. So through to the left of it and back out through the right, and then back in that hole and pull it tight. Like so. So then along to the next hole, and we're going to do the same thing. So open it up, put the needle through the gap between the end card and the first signature, out the other side, and then back in the signature. The third hole exactly the same. So the thread goes to the left of that stitch, around it and back in. Pull it tight, and then the last hole. So at this point, just check everything's nice and tight. Don't put it too tight, because otherwise the book will kind of bow a bit. And then this time you can just put the needle through and it will stick out the end of the book and hook it around that way. So that last stitch is a little bit easier. So on to the third signature. So in the corresponding hole and along to the next one. So on the last signature, we were putting our thread on in the gap between that signature and the end card. This time we'll be putting the thread in the gap between the first signature and the second signature. And because we did it left to right last time, we'll continue doing it left to right, and that just makes a slightly neater stitch. So in through there, out to the right of that stitch, and back in the same hole. Then along to the next stitch, and again we're creating this continuous line of stitching. So we've gone around the left of that stitch and back in. Now, as you can see, it's getting a little bit loose, so at this stage I'm just going to tighten it up a bit. Back in the same stitch, a long one, in the gap to the left, out to the right, and back in, and then along to the top hole. So at this point again, just neaten everything up, keep it tight, and then we'll go in to the left, out to the right, but this time we don't go back in the same hole because we are then going on to the last signature. So this is a 4 signature book, and as you can see, we've done those 4 signatures quite quickly. So on this signature, we are going to be going into the gap between signature 2 and signature 3. So around there, back in the same hole, and along to the next hole. When I'm teaching a workshop in this, what I quite often do is to get my students to put a post-it note in at the signature that we're going around the stitch of. So I would get, for this signature, I would get them to put a post-it note here so then they can open it up and very easily see where they've got to put that thread around. Had I remembered that before I started this video, I would be doing that to show you as well. So, last couple of stitches. And then back in there. Oh. Down to the last one, and then through the end one. So all we have to do now is add the top end card. So this is done in exactly the same way. The only thing to note with this is that you've got one piece of card as opposed to a stack of several sheets of paper. So when you pull your stitch tight, you have to do it incredibly gently because it won't take much at all for the card to break. So if I give that a big yank now, then that would tear there. So all tightening of stitches from now on has to be done really gently. Around here. So as before, even though we're going up the book, we're still putting the thread in to the left and then bringing it out to the right so that all of our stitches are uniform. Last stitch, so we've got another continuous line of stitching in there. So I'm going to hold it and then I'm going to really gently just tighten each stitch in turn. And then I'm going to go back in the same hole, thread the needle through there, and in the loop that creates, I think that worked. Create a knot. And I might do that 2 or 3 times. So I usually would trim these so that they won't stick out on top of the book. And there we have a finished Coptic binding. Thread on the front can also be trimmed.